Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hola, as we should say. Hola. So this week, welcome. This week we're doing The Thing. I picked The Thing, classic 1983 John Carpenter horror movie. It's filled with practical effects. It's probably known as, or it is known as one of the greatest practical effect films of all time, which I would agree with. I picked it because it's canon for horror. It's like it's considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And it also has these incredible practical effects, which are kind of, I feel like, making a resurgence in cinema right now. So, we see a lot of CGI, we've seen a lot of computer animated stuff, but practical effects are kind of having a little comeback moment. And this is one of the greats of practical effects. So there are a lot of reasons to pick it. I also personally think it's an airtight script. I think it's a pretty perfect movie. Although it is missing, there are no women in it, but other than that, I think it's pretty great. So what are some initial thoughts? Should we hop right into initial thoughts?
We should.
Okay. Jason?
Yes. Okay, so this is my first time ever seeing this movie, and it is on my list of movies that I want to see. I believe it's on the 1001 movies you got to see before you die list. And it's also on my personal Halloween list for horror movies I wanted to watch this year. So this thing is knocking out two birds with one stone, three if you count Cinema Club. So it's awesome. Okay, so this movie has like popped up a lot in my life. If someone gave me the DVD like years ago, never watched it. I'm talking like in college, somebody gave me this DVD, still never watched it. And he's like, "No, you're gonna love this. Watch it." And it's just sort of hung around my house, and I've never actually seen it, and I've just always kind of been gnawing at the back of my mind, like, "Oh man, I should watch The Thing one day." And it's always on every horror movie list. It's always like top 10, top 15, like on any list. Like, I don't think I've seen a list where this thing isn't in the top 15. Gotta say, I love this movie. It's fan-freaking-tastic. The practicals in it is everything to me, because this is like top echelon 1980s practicals, man. Like I just kept looking at this thing like, how much work went into like making this monster? This thing is crazy, and it's so inventive, and it's so creative, and it's ugly and nasty to look at. Like, you don't really doubt it, but you know what it is. But you're like, looks awesome. Like, to tell the story, it's fantastic. There's a game like this too that I kept thinking about. There's a horror game that these psychologists had invented, where it's basically like you pick two monsters amongst like 11 people in a group, and there's a way that the group tries to figure out who's the monster and who's not. I think it's called Wolf or something like that. I think it's like a German game. And it's like, oh, that reminds me of this game. I wonder if it's based on The Thing. So this thing is kind of awesome. It kind of plays a bit of a chess match. The alien and the human, the humans, I guess, are playing sort of a little bit of a chess match. And it kind of makes me think of the opening scene where he's like playing chess on his little computer or whatever, and he says the thing's cheating. And so it makes him like really kind of the best chess player in that joint. You know what I mean? Because that's what it sort of feels like to me. It's also one of these weird movies that everything takes place in like one setting. There's on this small little, remote base camp, and to shoot an entire horror movie like in this small confined of space, like it just kind of makes me think like, what was that like shooting with those guys, and that kind of space and atmosphere, and it seemed very dark and dank and cold and wet and nasty, and kind of it just sort of felt that way watching the movie. So I don't know, it just felt kind of like, what was it like actually shooting that thing? I just kept thinking. Kurt Russell, young Kurt Russell, awesome to see him in this. You can tell why he went on to become a big old movie star. He's terrific. And Keith David, I can't believe he was even in this movie. He's fantastic in this thing. Yeah, so those were my first initial thoughts of the movie. I liked it very much. I will say this one last thing before you go, Dino. As I was watching it, I kept kind of thinking like, I don't know if this deserves to be in the top 10. Like, not much is really happening, like far as like scary stuff. And then once it picks up and gets going, like that monster's horrifying. It's like this thing could be anybody, the thing. And it was super cute when it was the dog. I kept saying like, oh, that's an awesome villain. That's the cutest horror villain ever. But it changes.
I know. I think that's like one of the most exciting openings of all time because like the first time you see it, you're like, why are they attacking a dog? Like it's a dog. Like you just don't.
It's not even a wolf. It's a dog.
You're like, is it like infected with rabies? Like you keep trying to like make your brain is trying to match what is going on with this dog. And it's a brilliant opening, like to lead you in that way, to introduce the thing as something that's like, man's best friend. It's incredible.
It's pretty incredible.
Okay, Dino.
Well, just to start with a dog, now we've been hardwired to think I'm like, oh, we're not starting like John Wick, are we? Are we gonna have to avenge this little dog? Like, I mean, we could, right? Because the thing did go after the dog, so in theory, it's a revenge. Yeah, a movie that's come up all the time. I've never seen it, but it's been in lists. It's been in other movie reviews or everything. So I'm glad I saw it. I saw it on a plane trip here. I was telling them about it, and it made the plane trip. You're kind of stuck in the plane in the seat. So I was kind of like, oh boy. And it was interesting because the person right across from me was watching the silent. Oh, what's that one? Silent.
Quiet Place.
Yeah, Quiet Place.
Oh,
The
yeah.
the beginning or whatever. Which part of the cool thing about the thing is like it kept morphing, and so like clearly I had some like alien aspects to it of like the hugger, but also of like the monster in A Quiet Place that opens up, a little bit of Stranger Things. Like it was just amazing. And again, I'm so glad you brought up the practical because that was like my first kind of notes that I had was about right away. I'm just like, this is great. I love the setting. I'm like, clearly they're not in Antarctica filming, but it's snowy, and being able to mix that. I love the graininess of the films. Like I kind of miss that because at the same time, you can forgive a lot of like the bad effects, but then you have shots like when they find the freaking spaceship, and it's like they do such a cool thing with a perception of where they are, and then only two of them go down, and so one stays up, and so that allows you to kind of see the size of the spaceship and what is drawn and what is like a set. It's just beautiful. It's like this. It's painting backdrops that just a mix of like all the different things they had, and I enjoy that. And even with the monsters, a little bit of the stop animation, I'm more forgiving of that than Uncanny Valley and that kind of like CGI and stuff like that. It's like I rather know that something is a prop than just there's nothing there at all that has been added later. Also, didn't know it was Ennio Morricone that did the composer.
I know.
Dun
dun dun dun. The two notes, or it's one note repeated. It's like brilliant.
Because if I knew, like, I would have seen this years ago. Because I went down Ennio Morricone, Sergio Leone. Like, I'll go
one of the greatest composers ever. Yes.
Yeah, composers and directors and all that. But then I was in the plane, so I was like, is he playing anything? Like, this is the best. And yeah, it was just a one note.
Which is brilliant. It's like a creepy heartbeat. Like, I mean, there's like, and the sound design, that was another thing. Like on this watch, which is maybe my fourth watch or something, it was like, I kept hearing like the wind, like the howling wind, which was so creepy. And it's such minimal music, but it really is used so well along with the sound design.
Yeah. Then I also did put Keith David So Young and cooking. I put like he's just like from that age. I was like, who is this? This guy looks familiar. And I was like, man, I don't know how much you want to go into more things of practical, but great Men on Fire stunt walking out of the station, and that like
the best I've ever seen.
I know.
Just like walking,
and like watching this now after like at our age and our generation and seeing so much CGI fire like scene and be like, that's real. That's a real man on fire. Like that's so cool to me. I'm like, that's a real stunt. It's awesome.
I know.
It's incredible.
It's like so long we're like, oh, it's so crappy. It's a guy on fire, so he's not gonna be moving around crazy.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, he's actually on fire.
He's
Like, that's actually dangerous.
Both of you brought up Keith David. And so like for me, he has easily since the first watch been my favorite character. And I'm wondering, because you both brought him up, is he your favorite character in the film, or do you have other characters that you love? Like I think he's such a fantastic dynamic actor. He brings so much to so little with like whatever he does. And in this role, you could have gone a lot of different ways with that role. And he's naturally has like such a charisma about him. So I really love watching him, and him being one of, two people in the end that survive. And you're wondering if either one the thing, which one could be the thing. I love that he's one of the final remaining people. So he's, to me, my favorite character. But what do you two have a favorite character, or did you feel strongly about anyone?
Can I say real quick?
Yeah.
Kind of, we talked about the Bechdel test. Is it Bechdel?
Oh, yeah.
Which, first off, the only female reference is talking to the chess machine and calling it a cheating bitch, right? That's
oh my God, yeah.
Reference. And then I was like, oh, at first I was like, only one black guy. And then I was like, oh, two black guys. I wonder which is going to die first. And then I'm like, holy shit. So that was my first like initial thing. Anyway, that's how I wanted to
I had the same thought when I watched it for the first time. You're like, okay, well, two black guys, lucky that there's two, one of them, or they're both definitely going to die. Like you just think that. And so the fact that one of them ends up at the end, it's pretty interesting.
Both of them close to the end. I thought it was a super dope shot where like all three guys were standing there. Like we know you're the alien. You know what I mean? And there's like these two black guys sandwiching Kurt Russell. Like that's just a cool shot. Like and it was kind of funny too. There was like there was a comedic element to it. But then like it turns out like nobody of that group was an alien
that we know of. I mean,
that's true.
Because like it's funny because I asked my partner John. I asked him like, who do you think the thing is at the end? And this is like a constant debate with this movie. People are like, who's the thing, or is either one the thing? And I think it's like widely assumed that one of them is the thing. I know that Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, who's brilliant, he has commented that he thinks that Keith David is a thing because of the way he's lit or something. Which when I watched, I like couldn't pick up on anything significant that made me think one way or another. And I know Jason, you said an interview where you said John Carpenter says that he feels like there's a definite answer. But like even John, who's seen the movie more than me, my partner was like, I don't think either of them are the thing. And I was like, oh, really? That's interesting. Because I definitely think one of them is the thing. I don't know which one. I go back and forth.
So when right before the movie ended, the final shot, I was like, right before the final shot, when they were just staring at each other, I was like, I would be totally okay with the movie ending right here.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the final shot of everything on fire. It's like, oh, no, that's a great cut. I like it has to end right here. And it did. And I was like, oh, that's terrific. I love that we don't know. I love it. That's the best part to me.
It's so, to me, like one thing that makes this movie such a favorite, a personal favorite for me is I personally am terrified by the unknown. Like I don't, anything that's like, there's not an answer for what it is or where it comes from. That is absolutely terrifying for me. And the thing is this alien, creepy thing that we don't know what it is or how to kill it or how to stop it. Like not definitively, like we don't know enough about it. So that's, or like who's the thing, like all of that is so terrifying for me. So I love the ending being this like unknown with that creepy heartbeat sound. It's like, ugh.
Which also reminds me of like when the virologist guy, the doctor was, sort of figuring it out, like how long the infection rate would be. He's using the computer. I'm like, whoa, he's using his computer to calculate this thing for him in 1982. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that technology doesn't exist yet. But I feel like we just got that technology like recently.
It's movie technology,
Right. You got an AI robot working for him. Like, oh, but that's super dope though. And so it did the calculation. And I was like, so did you guys look up 27,000 hours?
No, I didn't. And you know what's funny? Because when I was watching it this time, I had that thought. I almost pulled out my phone
I
and
had to.
calculated. But then I was like, no, I got to focus. I got to be present in this movie. But I had the thought. What was it?
So it's 3 years and 1 month. It would have completely taken over the earth in 3 years and 1 month.
If the
And
thing
that's
was
again just an average, right, or a theory. It could go quicker, right?
Yeah, just a calculation.
It can
Yeah,
go
different
quicker.
things can occur.
It
It could go slower if humanity puts up a wall. I don't know,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Going back to the Keith David, like, because he was the leader was gonna hand over the reins first to him, and
Right.
then dude was like, and I'm like,
Was that racist?
I know, I was like, did I miss something? And then Kurt Russell is like, yeah, you need to be like more calm down, and I was like, wait, is that racist? Like,
I know. I had that same thought when I watched it because I was like,
not with your temperament. Did he have a bad temper in the movie before that?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because when I was watching this time, I was like, McCready, like Kurt Russell, like he's like a loose cannon a little bit. He's like pouring liquor into one of their only computers. Like he's reckless. I was like, you're reliable, like more reliable than Childs.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, I don't know. I would take my chance with Childs, to be honest with you. But then that kind of also reminded me of Night of the Living Dead a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Night of the Living Dead, I always confuse with Dawn of the Dead.
The black and white one where the black guy kind of is the leader.
Wait, that's Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, the original.
Oh, okay.
And that was his first film. It was the black and white one. And black dude slaps a white woman also.
Yeah.
Whoa. Going to the end of this, and I don't know if it's also because he used the Ennio Morricone soundtrack, but I was getting huge, and of course this movie came way before, and I'm sure he's talked about it. Huge Hateful Eight vibes. Because it's like basically one location. Like, even though in this one you were saying the base, they do go over to check out that other base, right? And we get that initial shot, but it could all just be in their own base. Like, this could be a stage play. I mean,
Kurt Russell in both of them, right?
Right. Oh yeah. But it ends with just two people, black guy, white dude, kind of just like about to like injured. It's like cold. They're kind of laughing about it, or just like
they kind of call it the troops at the very end.
And
also,
they are both kind of because that whole movie was kind of like who's telling the truth, right? They were all kind of like who, like, is he the sheriff? Is he actually, like, was that a letter from Lincoln? Like, so you kind of end up with this. That one, at least, it's a little more open that, you know, they're both kind of bullshitting. But I just kept getting so many of the same vibes of, which is, you know, this movie had you've seen it more and you know more about it, that I don't know if it's the first to do a bunch of different, you know, like this idea of the assimilation and like jumping back and forth and taking over. Like, you got the Denzel Washington Fallen, right? Even though that's about a demon falling and kind of taking over bodies, but it can also be animals. And so I don't know if this movie is one of the first ones to kind of play with that idea of assimilation, or what is it? Species is another movie that does similar stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it has like I mean, well, it's a bit, you know, there's the original like 1950 or 50 something, which is The Thing from Another Planet or Another World. I think it's Thing from Another World. So it's based on, this is like the remake, although this one is, you know, notoriously, it's like famously so much better, so much more respected than the first one. So I know it's based on that. I haven't seen the first one because I hear it's not very good, although I am curious to watch it. But I don't know how many similar elements there are with the alien stuff in the first one. But
what movie is it based on, or was the first one?
It's technically like a remake of The Thing from Another, I want to say Another World or Another Planet.
Yeah, the thing. Oh yeah, right.
The Thing from Another World. I think it's The Thing from Another World. Yeah, The Thing from Another World, 1951. But that's like a black and white horror film. Obviously, the practicals aren't going to be anywhere near what they are in the new one. But speaking of practicals, because we all talked about that, like I personally love a good practical effect. The Substance has just come out with Demi Moore, and a lot of people are talking about the practical effects in that. It's a body horror film and how it's doing a lot of really incredible practical effects and stuff in that. But we do see a lot of CGI these days, so I do think it's like a special treat when you get to watch something where the practicals are this good. And it's, the first time I watched it, I was stunned. I think I actually had my mouth open for most of the movie because you're like pummeled with these incredible effects. So my favorite scene is the one where the guy's like laying down on the table, and then he puts his hand, and the hand goes into his body, and then it ends up with like his head on that like creepy spider looking thing that runs away. So that's my favorite practical effect of the movie. I think when I saw that, I was like screaming out loud for that full scene.
Yeah.
So do you two have favorite practical effects upon your first watch?
I mean, that one was incredible. The whole thing with the body and the head falling off and then turning into a spider. And I was just watching all of that like this looks incredible. And I'm kind of buying all of it. You know what I mean? Like it was, I guess I have to agree with you, man. Like there's a lot of really good ones. But I mean, almost everything with the alien is incredible.
Yeah.
Like all of it, the dog and the autopsy and like all of it is just, it's all incredible. But yeah, that scene is like, there's so much movement and so much happening in that scene that, yeah, those special effects are incredible.
Yeah. What about you, Dino?
Let me see what I wrote down.
No, give me. You got these notes. What do you got on your notes?
Real quick, when was the first? I don't know if you mentioned it. The first time you watched this, since you said you watched it a bunch.
I've only seen it. I've seen it probably like 4 times total. Maybe I'd say I've seen it at least 2 times before, maybe 3 times. And the first time I watched it was during the pandemic, so 2020.
Oh, okay. So
not that long ago.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure, like age-wise, like how much.
Yeah, no, it was just a couple of years ago, and I'd heard of it, like the same as you two. I'd heard of it. People talked about it. I thought it was like going to be like, oh, another cheesy 80s horror movie that's not very good or whatever. So when I first saw it, I was like,
yeah. All right, since I think we all agree on the movement stuff is really great practical, I'm going to go a little early though, because I did write a note on this, because it's a little combo, which was the use, which again has a lot to do with practical, the use of camera work, right? When they go into the Norwegian base and it's pitch black and has the flashlight, and the camera is we're discovering with the camera, the flashlight, and them, and you first see the bloody axe, and then they continue, and there's the guy that slit his throat and is completely frozen, even though it's not a movement, like a monster movement. They took so much time and effort to like get that slash and the drops, and it's like the icicles, but it's also the blood icicles. And I was like seeing that at the very beginning. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a treat. Like we started like this, and that has been done in so many other movies and other formats, which I don't know again if it might have been in the original, but the idea of going and finding this kind of abandoned, even though it starts with the Norwegian shooting at the dog and all that, but the idea of finding an empty base, and it's a huge zombie kind of, even in games and all that, where you like, oh, you gotta read the files, or oh, you gotta, video games, open the computer, what does it say? And then you stumble on the people, like, oh, even Fallout, yeah, the TV show, where they stumble in and they've, committed suicide and stuff like that, like we know, and it's just like, oh, the Thing did it back in the early 80s already, of the idea of like, and dude had a noose already set up, just like I'm gonna take me out before it has a chance to copy me, type of thing. And to start on that note, I'll go with that as a practical.
I
Yeah,
noticed
those
too,
were great effects.
I upon this watch, like I really took that moment into where, like you said, like the frozen dripping, the blood that had dripped down, that frozen blood. I think like, when I watched it the first time or first couple of times, I was so stunned by like the moving practicals that these other things I didn't really, they weren't as memorable to me. But this time I noticed that, and I had that same thought where I was like, holy crap, that looks so good. It looked so creepy. And the way his like head is tilting back and you can see this gape in his throat. It's just, ugh. And also because mentally too, you're like, the kind of willpower it would take as a human to slit your own throat, like it's got to be the worst of the worst situation in order for you to do that. So that adds like this extra element of creepiness.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny because sometimes I don't put it all together the first time I watch a movie. Like I remember the guy slit his throat or whatever, and I'm just like, what happened here? But I didn't think about it as the movie went on. I didn't,
Right.
Shaving accident.
Yeah, like I didn't go back and think like, oh, this is the damage that the monster did. I do remember there being a lot of holes in the wall. There's like a hole in the wall in every single room. I'm like, was it shotgun shells? Like what happened here? Pretty wild stuff, man. It is a great like all that sort of does make you think again, like it's such a great opening for a movie that those guys are chasing the monster to start the film. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty incredible if you think about it.
Yeah. I love it because like the first time I watched it, I remember thinking like, just why are they chasing a dog? Like what is with it? It's like a dog and you feel bad for the dog. You're like, let the dog get away. Let the dog get away. It's just a dog. And then, and this time when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, that dog is such a good actor. Like
that dog's an incredible actor.
It was an incredible actor. Like the way it would look and move, I was like, it's so ominous. It had such intention behind its eyes. I was like, how did they get the dog?
When it was watching the group and all that, I'm like, oh man, like I can hear this dog's thoughts right now. It's incredible.
It looked like it had more going on. It was like so creepy. And like there's like that scene where it creeps into the room with that one guy, which eventually later becomes one of the things. And it's like, and it walks in slowly and you're like, what's going on with that dog? Like,
I will say I did know the dog was the thing because of all the attention the dog was getting. I just kept like, is the dog the thing? Like the dog's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I picked it up like with all the time they spent with that dog. Yeah. But the dog was a character. Matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the dog was my favorite actor in the film.
Love that.
My best character. My favorite character.
Just when he gets put in the cage with the other dogs, I mean, them all laying down, and then it's almost like whenever they do like pretending to be humans, it's like, oh, dogs laying? I guess I can. Is this what they're doing?
Yeah.
And you see all the dogs around it getting so stressed out. They're like, like whining, and that's so eerie too, because you think of dogs as like these innocent creatures. And also I was watching that and I was like, how do they do this? Like, how do they get all these dogs like to at the same time be laying and be like getting more and more stressed out? Like, that's just incredible.
It was, those dogs were awesome actors. Like, this is one of the best acting I've seen from a dog in a movie. I'm not gonna lie. Top 10.
Better than Air Bud.
Better than Air Bud. I mean, he's the artist dog, that little Jack Russell.
Oh yeah, right. Or like the dog from Frasier. The dog from Frasier was great. also a Jack Russell. Beethoven. Man, there are a lot of great dog actors.
That's right.
Wishbone. Did you guys say Wishbone?
Wishbone. That's like pulling up some strong childhood memories for me.
I would have liked to see Wishbone do the thing.
That's funny. Yeah, man. That dog was great. What were you saying, Dino?
Which part?
Oh, I thought I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, there were a couple of things. Like, I don't know. Did you have someplace else you wanted to take the conversation?
I'd love, if you have notes, I'd love to hear. Like, I'm just so excited by you guys watching this for the first time. I want to hear everything you got.
I just thought about it. This is a new note, because I wrote it down when we were talking about it, and it's Kurt Russell. First Kurt Russell note. I was like, what the hell is that hat? And boy, is that a choice, right?
Oh
Are we
yeah.
like, oh, he's the wild one? He's like a
Mhm.
cowboy pilot? Like that's all right. Anyway, that was just a funny hat. Like that's gonna help in Antarctica flying your helicopter.
Right.
But okay, so he talks in the radio, and he talks in he's recording stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna hide it. And I didn't think much of it, but it plays with this shot of him talking about like the clothing we found ripped through clothing, but it didn't have a name. But then so and so they did find one with their name. And then there's a shot of him, like an eerie shot from behind, and I can't remember if he actually looks over to like the hallway or not. But it's a hallway shot, and I was like, that's really weird. And then his jacket appears with his name all torn up, and so it's like, oh fuck, they got Kurt, right? But now I'm thinking like again, it's the camera trick of the thing was walked past him and heard that, and so set him up. Because how would the thing have known
Mm.
that he already knew that unless he heard him say it?
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's such a great observation because then after that, they test the blood and he's like not the thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows if he is at the end or not, but yeah, that's so interesting. I love the way you're bringing up these camera movements because I definitely was I was taking a look at them with a more discerning eye this time, watching like the hallway shots, the following, and all of that. It's very interesting.
So
How yeah.
I almost think it was the point of view of the thing or a thing, right? Because I feel
Yeah,
like it's split up, and there might have been more than one at some point.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
blood thing was not expecting that to be not just like the blood react, which is really cool, which we
Mhm.
again have seen in other smaller things of just like usually it's a little blood vial like popping or whatever, but the popping then creating a chain reaction to the thing in the body, and I was like, whoa. And that head popping out and then that walking, oh my god.
Yeah, that was all very cool. I was like, how
God.
are they making that blood move right now? Are they tilting the thing up or something? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because earlier, you mentioned stop motion, but I looked this up. There's actually no stop motion. It's all puppetry and other effects, but there's
Wow.
no stop motion. So,
Oh.
because I looked that up because we were watching it and John was like, "Oh, it's like stop motion," and I was like, "Is there stop motion?" No, it's no stop motion. It's all puppetry, all different
That's
stuff,
incredible.
which is extra amazing because it's like all done by people like manipulating it.
That's really impressive. Is it Henson? Is it Henson? Because that would be amazing if it's Jim Henson.
I
Henson
don't
worked on the thing.
know.
I wouldn't listen, man. I didn't see his name in the credits.
No, I didn't see it. But I
Yeah.
mean, they did Star Wars and all this other, so I'm like, maybe they were doing horror as well.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk about the music for a quick sec. I know that you guys had touched on that for a second, but when I saw the name pop up, what's his name?
Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, Morricone. I was just like, holy crap, he did the score to this thing. Completely forgot about it while I was watching it. Kept thinking like, oh, this thing's got a groove to it. And then the final, the main theme that plays at the final credit, I watched the credits all the way to the end because I was just sort of grooving to the theme song. Like, this is a pretty incredible theme song. So I just forgot that he had did it, even though I acknowledged him earlier in the movie. I was just this thing takes you on a ride, man. I was just like in the moment with the movie. I wasn't thinking too much about like what happened or trying to put it together. I was like in the space with them. This thing is kind of a little bit claustrophobic, right? Because we're just in this space with them. And I watched it in a dark space. And so I was just kind of in there with them. And this movie kind of does that. And I think that helps to sort of just like build tension a little bit.
Yeah.
Like if you were watching it in a dark cinema,
Yeah. I do think that that's one thing that the movie, like script wise, I think it's like such a brilliant, perfect script because it really builds tension so well. It doesn't try to do too much. It's not like throwing in a lot of new characters or having like a lot of twists. It's really extremely linear. It just goes from A to B in the story. And we're just watching like a survival piece essentially with monsters. And I think it does building tension so well and just building off of the previous thing. Like the script just honors the previous thing that happened and just moves forward. It's like, this happened, so this must happen. This happen, this must happen next. And it just is extremely simple. It's like, we found out that this thing, there's a thing. These are the rules of the thing. Okay, we all acknowledge that. Now we're going to move like this. We're moving that. Like nobody's like acting that crazy. Like there's Doc who goes kind of nuts. I think that's so great that he, blows all the radios up and whatever, which I get it. Like you get it in the context of like why he would do that, because he's like, this could potentially ruin all mankind.
He had already did the calculation, right? He knew that the story was over. He's like, this thing's over. We don't get out of here.
Yeah. And that was brilliant for the story. But like, other than that, like nobody's really going crazy or throwing wrenches in it. It's just moving forward, survival, trying to escape the monster, trying not to become the monster. It's so simple and just does it so elegantly that it works and the tension just naturally builds.
And what's great of the Doc doing that, because nowadays what they talk about being the hardest thing is having cell phones, right? Having that anything can communicate with whatever. And even though they're at the beginning, they were like, try to get in touch with radio, right? And they couldn't get in touch with him. But the fact that the Doc then goes and destroys the communication and destroys the helicopter and stuff like that, to the point where now they're completely in lockdown, is pretty impressive. Because movies struggle with that. I was like, just leave. You got the helicopter, just leave. You have the little tractor, just leave, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting though that the monster didn't want them to leave. Like the monster wanted to devour all of them. And I guess maybe it assumed it would build a ship and get out of there, huh?
Or that it would eventually be rescued and that it would have enough information about humans by that point.
I guess it assumed that it would be rescued. Like, how would an alien know that there was more humans or what else was on this planet? I mean, let's assume that they did know. But I guess it could understand. It was picking up on language easy enough where it started to put things together pretty quickly, right?
Well, also there's this other added element which is interesting and creepy, and that it survived. When they go to the ship and they look at the layers of the ice, and they're like, 100,000 years is probably how long the ship has been here. So we know that the thing has survived by being frozen for 100,000 years. So we know that the thing knows that freezing is an option for it, that it will survive if it's frozen. So it's, I think, not as worried as much about what's going to happen next as it is survival, because it knows that there's a future if it survives.
Right.
After his little spaceship got blown up, then the option was like, kill the remainder humans to then be the one that gets saved, or even just go back to freezing, right? And then pop out next time.
It was all chess, man.
Yeah.
You see, like the director, I don't know if that's in the script or but that's the correct way to build a story, man. It's like it's layered and it's textured and there's little ideas and themes and symbols introduced throughout. And this movie's just a well-made movie, man. It's a masterpiece, I guess.
Okay, so
it's a masterpiece.
The fact that you brought chess up again, now I'm like, now I need to go back. We need to see what were the chess plays that they actually showed. Because at the very end, he moves the queen, right? And he makes some comment, and it's like checkmate was the next one. So what was the setup of the trap, right? Was there a trap or not? I mean, clearly
it was on screen long enough. You're right.
Yeah, we're over.
What I noticed the rooks were moved over, and he was hiding behind the rook in the corner.
I didn't pick up on any of this chess stuff, but I'm loving this because once you pointed out that he was playing chess at the beginning, and that that this is kind of like I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Like it is kind of like that. Now I gotta rewatch it.
Yeah, man.
I guess tonight I'll have to rewatch it.
This thing is very layered, very textured. It's a very thoughtful. It's one of the easily one of the most thoughtful horror films I've seen. Like it's not
Yeah.
dumb science or anything. It's not like
No.
science for the sake of science. Like they really thought this thing through.
Yeah. And having it take place, like, you know, setting is such a big thing. Obviously, like setting really matters in cinema. And having it set in Antarctica, which is this place that like even the most intelligent people don't really know much about. Like it's only the people who've ever been there. And it's, you know, it's like there's like a lot of secrecy around Antarctica. So it's already this kind of like unknown area. And then having this unknown alien thing be discovered there and these men trapped there where they're against the harshest climate possible. And it's already a survival film without aliens. Like they're already trying to survive. And then you add in this alien monster and that's just so brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, also, it's Alien as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the same kind of theme as Alien, and this came just like a few years after Alien.
Also, one of my favorites.
It's also probably in most top 10s.
Yeah.
So this is the other thing that I was thinking of. I don't know if during the movie or just when we were talking, but the radio guy, even before the thing actually pops out, right? It's just after the first encounter with the Norwegians at the very beginning, it's like, get in touch. And he can't get in touch with anyone, not the Norwegians or other people. So, and in situations like that, yeah, it's kind of known like all these different countries or groups or organizations normally have their own bases doing their own studies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the Americans and the Norwegians, like were there other bases? Because then that's where I was also thinking of like, does that mean the others also got infected as well? Because he isn't able to, or is it just the weather is so bad that they can't get any message across, right? So that's what I was thinking, like, and clearly that easily is a setup for some kind of a sequel, or could have, or at least in today's day and age, you're like, there were other bases, you know, that not just the Norwegian, but the
or the
the
rescue
Paraguayan
team shows up, right? Was there ever a sequel to the thing?
No, I don't think there's any there's like no official sequel. There's films that are like loosely tied. There was a remake there was a film in 2011 or 2012, I think 2011, actually called The Thing. And I think it's supposed to be either a prequel or a sequel, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen it.
And was there a director's cut of The Thing as well that maybe came out later, or
I don't know. I would assume, knowing John Carpenter, that this was the director's cut, but I don't know. Maybe there was. Which I also wanted to say, like, speaking of the music, because we all talked about the music, and this was another interesting thing. So, like, you know, John Carpenter also composes, and he composed the music for Halloween. Famously, he did that on like his keyboard. So being such a simple soundtrack, when I was watching it this time, I was like, I'm assuming that John Carpenter did this because it's just the same note, dun 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 dun. Has the brilliancy that Jaws has with their soundtrack, but with just one note instead of two. But I looked up and, you know, I saw it was Ennio Morricone, and I was like, God, that's like I don't know. That was so interesting to me. I was like, oh, it's an actual. He got another composer, and this composer was like, oh, I got you. One note.
and top build at that. It was like one of the
one of the best composers of all time. And he's like, no, I got it. One note.
Yeah, when I was listening, I was like, this must have been the easiest paycheck ever.
But it like works so well for the film, and I think that's such an example of like somebody who's like, less is more. Like it works so well because I think that the sound design is more important in a lot of ways, because you don't really hear music for most of the movie, and when it comes in, you know, you really know, okay, now I'm supposed to be creeped out. Now it's something ominous is happening. But a lot of the movie is howling wind. A lot of it's howling wind. You hear that a lot.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
So yeah, because I when I was going down my rabbit hole of Ennio Morricone, one of the times, I think the most he composed was either close to 100 scores in a year for like movies. like
Wow.
that, like in a year that he composed for movies. Now,
Wow.
again, did I watch those 100 ones? Are they just like other Italian spaghetti westerns? But
Wow.
just the fact
That's
that he was able to like, you know, put those out that quickly.
yeah, that's incredible. Well,
I do.
maybe he did a lot of this. Like, oh, just one note. That's right.
I know.
Right. That's how to do it. Just find out it's just a theme.
It
Just
works for the
happens right.
thing. And
Right.
oh, and I also wanted to say, you pointed out Kurt Russell's hat, and I think that that is like such an iconic figure from this movie. The hat, like I always think of his big, ridiculous cowboy hat in Antarctica, which is so impractical.
Yeah.
And I really feel like this is Carpenter's nod of his way of being like, this is a Western. It's got a lot of the Western elements. And you're comparing it to Hateful Eight, and I think like it has a lot of those classic Western elements. There's duels, like there's these standoffs between men. It literally ends with a standoff between two men who are not sure they should become friends or enemies, or it's got a lot of elements of a Western, and Kurt Russell is the cowboy, literally with his cowboy hat. And it is ridiculous and funny, and I love it that it's this over the top thing that's so impractical in Antarctica. But
I mean, you're right. Maybe the cowboy hat, Morricone doing the score. Maybe it just had to happen.
yeah, I feel like that was Carpenter's way of being like, so it's secretly a Western.
Yeah, secretly a Western. You're a cowboy, Kurt. I mean, why wouldn't Kurt be a cowboy? Let's be serious.
God, he really is a movie star, man.
For sure.
With those shades, I mean, man, we've been seeing some movies around here that just have some iconic shades,
So let's talk a little bit about finances with this thing. So when the budget on this thing was about $15 million in the early 80s. It was released in 1982, and it did about 20 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. So not a huge box office success by any standard. Like this thing would have been lucky to break even, right?
Right.
So that's interesting that this thing went on to have the life that it did. I mean, I don't know like if there's any additional box office stuff from like midnight screenings and re-releases over the years. I would imagine it had to do better than 20 million like to date.
Right. Right.
And then DVD sales and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure this thing finally VHS, maybe DVD is probably when it really started getting its money back. Also, I do believe there was like a video game of the thing, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like this thing did like a lot of different marketing and stuff like that. But it's clearly a huge movie because it's parodied in like everything. Like I was just watching something last week where this was a parody of the thing, of the blood test thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know I don't know if it was like Always Sunny in Philadelphia or it was a TV show. I forget what I was watching, but whatever it was, they did a parody of that. And I didn't know what was happening when I was watching the parody. I just remember it. But that parody has been done a lot. Them testing the blood with the wire.
Yeah.
So this movie had a pretty big impact. It just didn't do great in the box office.
I mean, I think it's like, we talked about those practicals, and I think that it definitely influenced so many filmmakers with practical effects and what they could do. I mean, the way that the thing will, like when they opened it up, how it would come out and then more would come out. And it went beyond what Alien did. I mean, it took what Alien did and went further. It pushed the boundaries with that. So I think it did. The impact was obviously more than financial. I mean, here we are talking about it. It's one of the greats, and man, cult classic.
And that's the weird thing. It is kind of a cult classic, but it's also very much a mainstream sci-fi / horror movie. It's super mainstream, and it's designed for the mainstream. But I don't know if the mainstream they were up for it back then.
Well, I feel like John Carpenter, the majority of his movies are that, right? Like we think of it like, oh yeah, he's a renowned director. All his movies are hit. But if you think about it, they come up when they came out, they don't really do well. They just have a following, and then they become like oh yeah, these are actually good, right?
Yeah.
And maybe
And
that's
also,
just
yeah. I was gonna say, and also people think of John Carpenter, they think of Halloween, and like that's it. And like,
yeah.
and then maybe they'll be like, oh yeah, and then the other Halloweens, like, oh yeah, I liked the other Halloween, or like whatever. You know, I think
That's true.
they think of the franchise, but like generally they're thinking of Halloween. Most people, I think, if you ask what's another John Carpenter movie, they're gonna name more Halloweens, and that would be it. No one's. I mean, I think it's like people like us who are gonna be like The Thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this thing does have a video game that came out in '02. So yeah, I mean, this thing probably had all types of like marketing
Ooh,
success.
ooh! I was right. I knew there was other connections with Hateful Eight. Sorry.
Okay.
Um, Morricone's original Hateful Eight score, or the score for Hateful Eight, was originally for The Thing. He wrote two. I knew he had done it with a movie, and it was like a thriller horror. And he had done two. He had done one with like kind of orchestra music, like your regular orchestra
Oh my God.
instruments, and then he did one that was kind of like synth and stuff like that. And so I knew there was something like that, and it was like when Tarantino wanted to use stuff, he had been really busy, and I was like, well, I have this thing that I made, this stuff that I made for The Thing, but we never used it, and that was part of
Oh,
the
and you know
music
that
for
Tarantino
the
just geeked
Hateful
out over
Eight.
that, I'm sure.
That's
Huh?
incredible. So that's the
That's so
score of the
awesome.
Hateful Eight.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is
So
such a
he did
good
two
fun fact.
scores for this movie. And the first one was probably like John Carpenter's like, no, man, not the Western thing. Cut it. Like more scary. It's
Yeah.
like, fine. You're like
Yeah.
simpler. No horns.
He's like Jaws with a cowboy hat in
That's right.
Antarctica. And he was like, okay. He plays one note and he's like, that's it.
That's right. Yeah, right. That's it. He goes, no, I have so much more to give. Like, no, save it. Save it. Keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, man. Wow, what
That's
an incredible conclusion that we drew.
I
And
knew
there's all
it
these
was
feelings
yeah.
over it. In some kind of way, we sort of connected it. I don't know which one of you guys connected it, but you guys connected it, and it's
you
like
know.
it's really a thing. There's really a through line there.
Yeah.
That's what happens, folks. You put your energy and your spirit into a thing, and it bleeds on it. It smells of it. It stinks.
Yeah, he
Um,
needed to do I'm just reading up again, but
This
yeah,
thing stunk of the Hateful Eight.
for in
you mean the
time.
Hateful Eight stunk of The Thing?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That yeah, so Morricone was already working on another film, and they needed like the score in 1 month, right? And so I guess that's when Morricone pitched the film's theme that he suggested using music for The Thing that he had written, and John Carpenter didn't end up using it. Yeah, Morricone said, I wrote a whole orchestra score for The Thing, and I wrote a whole synthesizer score because I knew that was what John Carpenter was used to, which makes sense when John Carpenter used to just use his keys. Um, I gave him everything, and the only thing Carpenter used in the entire movie was the synthesizer main track. So basically,
Wow.
if you stay away from the synthesizer main title, all that music that's on the soundtrack album has never been used in a movie ever. So yeah, so
That's so cool. I love that
yeah,
fact.
yeah,
I
both
gotta go back and
in
listen
the
to that stuff, man.
I
Somebody should
remember
mix the old soundtrack over The Thing just to see what it would have been like.
Oh my God.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, or put in The Thing into the synthesizer bit into Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight, and it
Yeah,
just like matches perfectly. There's a lot
yeah,
of like heartbeat sounds in The Thing, like a lot of like
Yeah.
drums, like blood pumping and like almost primal, you know?
Yeah. It's very primal. I think that's the word I was looking for earlier. It's like, yeah, that like primal heartbeat, just so simple. Like that survival feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Guys, should we do our final thoughts?
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think it's about that time.
Okay, so Jason, final thoughts on The Thing?
Yes, final thoughts on The Thing. After talking to you guys about it, I have even a greater appreciation for The Thing, and I am going to absolutely watch this again one day. Man, maybe even sooner than later, like because I might do a little bit of investigating with the Hateful Eight and what have you. But yeah, this thing is fantastic, man. Like all the acting, I feel like is spot on. I feel like like you guys mentioned, the camera work is awesome. Practicals, you can't say enough about those special effects, man. Like it's just they're so cool. And I wonder if like kids today would watch this movie and think if the special effects were so cool. Like, oh, like would they think like, wait a minute, is this really happening? Like, what would they think? Or would they think it was corny or cheesy? Like, I don't know, but I think it's awesome. Um, uh, who would I recommend this thing to? I would recommend this thing to all horror fans. If you love horror movies, to all sci-fi fans, and not even if the two, never show the two cross. Sometimes, like you don't have to be either or, like, or you could be both. But that's the crowd who would watch this thing for sure and like really get something out of it. John Carpenter fans, if you love Halloween, you should just go ahead and watch this thing too. If you're a Kurt Russell fan, like this is his early work, man, and this dude is like I don't know if he was a big movie star before this movie, but after this movie, you can see why he became one. And like if you want to see a young Keith David, like just being intense with every line, like he's always been in every movie, like this is it. Yeah, this is a really awesome one, man. I'm glad that I finally got this under my belt. I've been meaning to watch it for like a decade or two. So yeah, that's my final thought.
Awesome. Dino, what about you?
If you like roller skates, I would recommend it too. No, I'm right there with Jason. I mean, I'm actually thinking, definitely want to watch this again. Would love to watch it. Well, I watched it with everyone that was seen at my iPad and the planes, but I would love to go to a theater or something, or if this is like in the
Yeah.
Hollywood cemetery or something. Like, I mean, it is currently it's October, so maybe it'll be showing
It's got to
in
be
a
playing
place.
somewhere.
Yeah, up in LA. So I would definitely go watch this again, to feel that, you know what's gonna happen, but you don't know what's gonna happen because it's everything seems to be so subtle, but then you have, and it's not cheap jump scares. Also, I did enjoy that because it's more of the paranoia and trauma. That's what some of the best thriller and horror stuff are. They deal with that. So yeah, alien movies, uh, thriller, horror, monster movie, like this hits so many different parts in it, and I would totally recommend this to a lot of people. And again, it's from the 80s, and it holds better than a lot of movies that usually the remakes or stuff that came in the early 2000s, right? Or the early 2010s or whatever. It just fits. It just kind of stays and will continue to keep going. And Kurt Russell was doing all those Disney films before. See, he was a kid star. So I don't know when he did that jump from kid Disney films to like Snake play, his Snake character or Little China, whatever, Big Trouble in Little China. So don't know when that jump was, but
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my final thoughts. This is one of my favorites. Watching it again, I was just getting more and more out of it. It solidified it as like a top 5 all-time favorite film. I think on every watch, I'm stunned by these practicals. I think it is so exciting that like watching them and knowing that's real, that those are something that, it's really oozing. That's so exciting to me to see something like that. And I think it holds up so well. Like Jason, you were saying, I don't know if kids are watching it nowadays and like if new kids would watch it and think it's cheesy or whatever, but I would hope they would have the wonder that we have when we watch it, which is, I know we're watching it with like awe and wonder. And I think that's so exciting. So definitely talking to you guys, I like it even more. The chess stuff, I was like, okay, now I want to rewatch it and watch more about these, like trying to pick up on more chess moves. That gave me something fun to look look forward to on my next rewatch. And I would recommend it for, like, we brought up Alien, and like people who love Alien, like a lot of people will constantly say Alien is, one of their favorite movies. It's one of my favorite films. And I think a lot of people who've seen Alien, this is a blind spot for them. So I would say if you love Alien, like watch The Thing. It's probably going to become one of your favorites.
I would second that.
So yeah.
Right on. Okay, very cool. I would second all those notions from both of you guys. And I just have one more question, and that's for Steve. And I was wondering, Steve, what do you got for us next week? He's around here somewhere.
He says, I don't know. It's Dino's turn next week.
Oh, is it Dino's turn?
Yeah, apparently. That's what he told me. And so next week, my choice for the film is, let's see if he has it ready to go. Rififi.
Wait, what is it?
This from the 53. Oh, does he have it?
There it is. Rafifi.
Very last minute, he told me I had to do it, and I have saved screenshots of movies that have popped up that sound interesting that I saved for this. And so I don't know if this came from someone talking in the Criterion Collection closet, or an interview of someone talking about some filmmaker or actor, actress that they enjoy this film. And so I had it saved as a possible film, and we're watching it. We'll find
out. All right. What country is it from?
It doesn't matter. We're watching it. I don't know. Italy. I literally don't really know much of it.
It looks Italian. This lady looks Italian.
It looks very film noir.
Yeah, it is film noir, and that's why I saved it, because I do like film noir as well. So, but I think it's Italian. So anyway.
Awesome.
All right. I'm sure Marina and Steve and JP perhaps will all be pleased.
Exciting.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess for Dino, Michaela, Jason, and Steve Dad's TV. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.